Hey guys, welcome to Layman's Terms Podcast, the place where we talk about really big topics using the smallest words possible. I'm Danny the bartender.
And I'm Tommy the trash man.
And together we're just two guys trying to explain the ever-changing world around us the only way that we know how. And today we're going to talk about GameStop. GameStop. What the hell is going on with GameStop? Okay. Finally, the little guy took a little jab at Wall Street, and I'm going to do my best at explaining exactly what's going on and also possibly give anybody a warning who's trying to jump on it. But Tom, you understand what's going on with this GameStop situation?
Not a fucking clue. Now, and that's the thing. So we talked about maybe what we were going to talk about on the next episode. And this seems to be what's trending. It's the hot topic. So it seemed like the right place to go.
Yeah, we love hot topics.
Now, this is called layman's terms for a reason. So we're going to try and break this down as simply as possible, especially to somebody like me who has no clue what's going on. Now, my extent of anything that comes, with the stock market is, I am involved. I have a 401k. So I get quarterly statements or, things like that. I just take a look to see how much money I made. That's about it. And then when the pandemic hit in a group chat, some people were like, yo, why don't you check out Robinhood? Now's the time to invest. So I downloaded it. One of my buddies, I forget, they get a free stock if I, use their account code, whatever. I don't know. Signed up and I bought, a few basic stocks, just in like Aqua. I did pretty well off of Dave Portnoy's stock, Penn Gaming. I got it it was a little high, but I've made some money off it because it's gone up since I bought it. So, I mean, I've spent a couple $100. I've made a couple $100. I just kind of go I'm like, all right, what do we kind of need right now? Like I looked into gun companies, you know what I mean? Because gun sales are through the roof. Just like certain things, and I'll just buy a couple stocks and just kind of see how they do. It's kind of like a little bit of a hobby, but it's not something that I'm like, I know I fully understand.
Well, I'm glad that you opened up that way because you just handled one of my definitions. You're what they call a retail investor, okay? You're just a regular guy who gets, hey, man, you should buy this stock. You get that trickled down hey, I think Disney, or you do a little bit of research yourself. Some retail investors get a little more involved than others, but what you just explained is you're the retail investor. So basically before GameStop situation happened today, you were the person preyed upon on Wall Street. You buy a stock and that's about it. You buy it and you hold it and you debate whether you should take profit at some point.
Right.
So now what is going on behind the scenes that a retail investor usually doesn't have access to is people are shorting stocks, buying calls on stocks. They're and basically when you buy a stock as a retail investor, your stock is usually being held by a bigger company, say Fidelity, E-Trade, whatever. So you're a retail investor. Now, what is a hedge fund? A hedge fund is an account that you don't have access to because usually there's some type of limitation financially. So in order to invest in a hedge fund, they might say, well, you have to commit $500,000. So not all hedge funds are huge. I mean, some of them like have $1 billion buy-ins, but even still, they're out of the reach of the normal guy. You can't get involved in a hedge fund with $2,000. You need to have like 500,000, $1 million, something like that.
Right.
So what happens with a hedge fund is they use a hedge fund basically is a high risk, but they usually guarantee returns higher than market value. So you're going to pay a lot of fees. So think about if somebody puts $1 million and they're getting charged, say 4% for being involved, or being transactions and stuff, that's big money. But at the same time, basically that fund has a lot of money, has a lot more weight in the market than just you making a decision. When a hedge fund decides to buy a stock, they buy it and sell it in millions of shares. You do it in 100 and 200. So what also is kind of gross that they get to do is they get to do what they call leveraging or margin, which means if a hedge fund, anybody can do this. You can. I mean, I used to trade on margin too, but again, it goes by what you already have. So if you have $1 million in an account, if you have $1 million in stock, you can sometimes leverage or margin up to 10 times that. So if you were day trading and you had $1 million in an account, you can day trade with $10 million. Does that make sense to you? Like you kind of have like access to a revolving bank account, basically, that you can borrow 10 times your money. So even though I don't have if I have $100,000 in my account, I can buy $1 million worth of stock, because the way that they see it is stock prices aren't that volatile. And there are, again, where it gets intricate is each stock will have different volatility. So something like, say, Apple, that's pretty strong and stable, or Facebook, you'll get more leverage if you own it, because basically it's not going to drop $200 the next day. The risk on that stock is less than some. So you'll get more leveraging or more buying power from owning that stock. So what hedge funds do is, well, so to explain what shorting a stock is kind of betting that the stock's going to go lower, but that's not the full capacity of it. That's what you need to understand. But to short a stock is to kind of take a bet and say that stock's going to go lower. So what someone does when they short a stock is you actually borrow the stock for a certain amount of time with the intention of returning it back to so the owner doesn't know. So if you buy into Fidelity and you buy 100 shares of Apple, okay, what happens is the Fidelity actually loans your stock out and you don't know. So you're looking at your thing every day. I have 100 shares of Apple, but basically they loan out your stock. That's how they make money off of your investment. So you buy the stock, and then at the same time, they're doing all kinds of things to make money off of your stock, one of which is shorting it. So if I borrow your stock at it's $120 a share, my goal is to basically, I sell your stock at $120 a share. And at some point in the next 3 months, my job is to try and buy it back lower than $120, give it back to you at 20 and keep the remainder. So if I borrow your stock at 120, you have no clue. You check your account every day. You own that stock. I go off, sell your stock when I see the market dip between, say it goes to 116. Then I sell it back to you, and you have no clue this transaction took place. It happened under your account. So, but no matter what, I have to give you that stock back. So if I think that your stock's going to go down and I borrow it from you at 120 and it never goes down and it's $130 now, I need to give it back to you, and I owe you the $10 extra on that stock. Does that register?
Not exactly. And this is to no fault, like, just to explain to people, Danny's going off this because he's a little bit experienced in the market. You going over this with me, bro, it's literally like you're speaking Chinese to me right now. So it's just like, I like, this makes me want to like challenge my IQ. Like I want to like take an IQ test out of this. It's just not registering. But I've never, math has never, ever been my strong point.
Well, here's the way that I could describe it without math. And even though it doesn't relate to the stock market, you might kind of understand it. Imagine if you ever like say that joke with your friends where maybe you're at work and the cash register's filled with money or something, and you say, hey, we could run out right now and we could put this all at the casino, and if we make money, we can come back and put it back in the register and no one will ever know. Or imagine that movie or something, like, I guess a way that I thought to explain it would be like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where they borrow the car and then they bring it back, but they need to take the mileage off it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So basically what it is just imagine you're sleeping and you're dreaming of your stock and you have no clue what's going on with it. And I take it in the middle of the night and the price is going up and down, and all I need to do is replace it back to you at market price. So if you wake up and you don't know that I sold your stock at $120 and I bought it back when it went down $10, when you wake up, your stock's $120. You don't know the difference. You know what I mean?
Right.
But either way, even if it goes up, I need to return it to you in the same condition that the market value says it is. So it's no loss to the retail investor. It's just a sneaky thing that people do, and that's how they make money off of you. So basically the game of the market is you got the big boys with the big money who manipulate the market, and they trickle down all that information to you, and then you buy one or two stocks, and then basically they just, do all kinds of dirty shit to you behind your back to make money. That's the bottom line.
Right.
So we understand shorting. We understand a hedge fund. We understand a retail investor. We understand leverage, market manipulation. So if you have big money, in other words, think about the difference, right? A stock only has a certain amount of shares, and you're dealing with, supply and demand. So if I own a large portion of supply, I can control the price. I can sell it like crazy to drive the price down. So you're either in a buyer's market or a seller's market. And the power that a hedge fund has that you don't is that they can manipulate the market. So basically, if they want a price of something to go down, they can make that happen just by selling it massively. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So now, what happened with GameStop? So why GameStop? Now, one question I'll ask you is, what makes GameStop, Bed Bath & Beyond, and AMC different than most stocks right now? Not in price, just what they actually are. What are they?
Well, they're real retailers.
Yeah, brick and mortar, right?
Right.
So basically, at a time where online sales are more important than anything, you got AMC theaters and Bed Bath & Beyond, which are going to get crushed because they're mall related. You need to go to them. GameStop has a little bit of an online presence, but for the most part, these are stores that people are going to.
Right.
So what the hedge funds did is, and what they do all the time, this is the gross part, is they basically gathered together to basically destroy them, because yes, they are stocks that are hurting anyway, and they're stocks that people don't really want to hold on to. But although they'll probably have their own troubles in the future, the market got together collectively and said, we're going to crush these stocks. So they basically made a large bet collectively that they were going to short GameStop, AMC, and Bed Bath & Beyond. Now, where the GameStop thing gets ridiculous and shows you how ridiculous Wall Street is now, remember I said shorting a stock is borrowing the stock, without the person's knowledge, in a sense. You're borrowing the stock, but you need to return it.
Right.
Well, there's things called indicators on stocks that people follow. Without getting into what all the indicators are, one of the indicators is you can see the short percentage. So if you're buying a stock and you see a short percentage and you're trying to figure out where you want to go with it, if Apple has a 25% short percentage, that looks like pretty much the overall view of the market is that Apple's going to continue to go up, and 25% of the people don't think so, which 75% do. So that's an indicator that the stock is going to go up. However, if it had a high percentage, like 75% of the stock was shorted, that means that the big money players in the market are pretty positive that that stock's going to go down. Well, in GameStop, their percentage of shorted stock was 140%. And you could see that. Any person can see that. The problem is the retail investor doesn't communicate. Like, if you were someone who gets a little bit more involved, you would say, oh, that's weird. That's 140%. And then you'd throw your $1,000 one way or the other. But collectively, the retail investor usually has no clue what's going on. It's the big guys that get together and say, we're going to crush it. So just the mere fact that 140% of that stock was shorted, along with the fact that they can manipulate the market with money. So what happens is they short the shit out of the stock, and then they'll come in over top of it with selling pressure and sell it down, only to be able to buy it back at a lower price. And who loses? The retail investor. The guy who's just holding his stock, who's sleeping, he wakes up, his stock's $14. Meanwhile, he doesn't know that his stock was borrowed and sold 10 times in the middle of the night. And when he woke up, his stock was lower, and all these people made out, which is where the hedge funds make out. So now what happened with GameStop exactly was somebody saw that it was 140% manipulated. So basically, there's not even enough shares to buy. Basically, it's like if everybody had to buy the shares back in the middle of the night, like I said, it's impossible. They basically have 40% more shares outstanding than they actually have. So in other words, if I sold you, 140% of 100 apples, you could never get that back from me. I don't have that 40% to give you. So somebody on a Reddit group got together, and so basically, when you short a stock, you have to buy it at a certain time. That certain time is tomorrow. And usually these companies spend all week trying to drive the price down on the stock so that they could get it lower than they shorted it, and then be, make out. Well, about a month ago, GameStop was $17.25. So somebody started a little buzz on GameStop and started saying, hey, don't sell. Buy it and don't sell it.
Hold on one second. I don't mean to stop you here, but you briefly touched on the Reddit. You didn't really say exactly what was going on.
Well, this is what I'm getting to.
No, okay. Because I don't even know exactly what a Reddit page is.
Well, it could be a Facebook page. It could be a group of people on Twitter. You know what I mean? Like, the whole thing is, it was something where a group of people were talking about something that the hedge funds and big market just weren't aware of. So basically,
Reddit is just a social media platform.
Well, okay. Reddit is a free speech platform that I believe kind of gave in a little bit to the free speech angle not too long ago, but it's like a Facebook. It's just more, I guess the best way to describe it would be like, you see how we like user-friendly stuff. This is more of like PC it's literally just like a forum of threads of text. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, Rogan has a really good Reddit page where basically he'll just say like, there's Reddit pages like, who should be the next guest for Rogan. And then all it is a giant thread of people just talking like this guy, that guy, and then you can reply to them. So Reddit has a page. It's called WallStreetBets or something. And basically, now think about what I said about what a hedge fund is and then what a retail investor is. The retail investor is the clueless guy walking around who really doesn't have it's nothing bad about the guy, but
you're talking about me.
Yeah. You're just buying a stock. I like Apple, so I'm going to buy Apple, right? You can't understand why it goes down $50 when down the line, it's just going to go up, but there's people that buy and sell underneath you, and your goal is to just hold on. So the sick part is that what these people normally do is basically you got to look at it in the tiers of buying. Retail investors at the bottom, and the most informed guys are at the top, and there's all different things in between. So basically, a big hedge fund, just the only reason why stocks get bought and sold is because a big hedge fund sits down and they get together with all the other hedge funds and they say, we're going to buy Apple. And then those people go out and they tell each of the people that work for them, all right, guys, we want to sell Apple. So they've got Apple at the cheapest price. Every time it goes to a different tier of person, look at it like a pyramid scheme. It's just going up. Like, we buy it at 20. The next level of people are buying it at 25. So the grossest part about this is that, remember that these people are shorting a stock, right? But technically they can still talk about it like a long-term stock, like it's good. So if I go on a TV show and they say, we're going to talk with Danny from Citadel Capital and we're going to ask him what's a good stock, and he's going to say Apple. But we don't know that he shorted the shit out of Apple, right? So he wants the price lower. So all of a sudden, after he told everybody to buy it for months and he's in at a good price, and he's telling everybody to buy it underhandedly, he's shorting it. And then at some point he goes on TV and says, I think now's a good time to sell this stock. So it's total manipulation that they do all the time. Me and my brother always had a joke when we were trading is whatever you hear someone tell you to do on TV, do the opposite. And you're 9 times out of 10 going to benefit. Because when they're telling you to sell a stock, it's because they want you to, because they're going to profit. So where this didn't work this time is collectively all the hedge funds were going around saying, oh yeah, you got to sell this stock. You got to sell this stock. Meanwhile, some Reddit thread basically said, buy GameStop and don't sell it. So remember I said it's 140% oversold, right? Then think about what you know about supply and demand. Basically, they told all these Robinhood kids, get 1 share, 2 shares, any shares of GameStop, and do not sell it no matter what. So these guys have to buy the stock at a certain time in order to cash in on their short. So a month ago, GameStop was $17, and that's when the Reddit page was telling people to buy it up. Meanwhile, there was a plan on Wall Street to actually get that $17.25 down. They thought they were going to crush that stock down to like $5, but they borrowed 140% of shares, and now they need to go into the market and buy them shares back or sell them shares. And all these people said, no, we're not going to sell them to you. So then you have what you call a short squeeze, which is all these shorts that want to come in and sell. Either way, they have to give the money back for the stock. They basically have to buy the stock back by tomorrow, no matter what. And so do you understand how this is a dilemma for them? Because like I said, they use leverage. So they only have $1 million, but they borrowed 10 million on their million because they can get up to 10 times leverage on their money. Mm. Well, they shorted a stock at 17.25, which means that they think it's going to be lower than 17.25. And their hopes was to get the stock down to 5 and keep the remainder because you thought it was 17.25. Instead, by these people refusing to sell, the stock yesterday was 350, even went up to 500 in after hours. And these people have to buy the stock. So think about that. They owe everything over $17.25, and they can't even buy it. So it's in a buyer's market. So you want to push it down, but you can't because these kids on Reddit ain't selling it. And meanwhile, basically you have big banks that borrowed 10 times the money that they had just to do what they did, and they don't even have the money to buy it back. Did that make sense?
Yeah, I'm getting a little distracted from your phone going off. Is that your phone?
Yeah.
The dings, whatever. Yeah.
Ding, ding, ding. Yeah, no stocks. So anyway, the bottom line is right now, what just happened in a nutshell is that a Reddit page got retail investors together in other words, people that usually don't have a clue what's going on. A Reddit page told millions of people what was going on.
Yeah.
And usually the only people that know what's going on is Wall Street. So now Wall Street's in a panic. And I think the craziest part is that, instead of being like, shit, they got us, what's going on Wall Street right now is it's, oh my God, poor us. And this needs to be stopped. And this is a travesty. What happened to us? And there was nothing illegal done. Wall Street's doing illegal shit every day, every minute of every day. But because basically what's going on is people went in to rob a bank and somebody didn't open up the door and now they're pissed. You know what I mean?
Right.
So the saddest part is that all Robinhood did was happen to be a place where people that normally don't invest were able to, use their spare change to buy percentages of stocks that they can't afford and do it collectively and have a Reddit page tell them, hey, here's the stock you want. So they focused all of their buying power on one stock. So basically, collectively, they really put a big dent in, like they put like two companies possibly out of business, which really isn't major, but it's major for the fact that a bunch of kids on Reddit took $14 billion from the stock market. I mean, that's incredible. You know what I mean?
Well, what's amazing to me is like, why hasn't this happened before?
Well, exactly, because it's nobody, like I said, like the retail, like in other words, you buy stocks. I bought stocks in the past. We don't really discuss what we do. We don't get together. You know what I mean? So it's just something that happened. It was just like, I think just like you said, like people started telling you to buy Robinhood, right? So I guess there is a clear-cut answer to why this happened. You said during the pandemic, somebody came to you and said, hey, man, you should try this Robinhood thing out. Robinhood's like 2-3 years old, maybe a little older, but it's probably caught on more now, Mm-hmm. Then I also seen a lot of people, even people that I know when I went back to work previously, a lot of people were telling me like, it was a big kind of talk online to like invest your unemployment and stuff like that. So what I think happened is, see, Robinhood, like if you go and you invest in Fidelity, remember I said how you can see all these indicators, Well, what happens is I'm under Fidelity and Fidelity is part of that whole system. So sometimes when you put in like I don't know if you do you only have a Robinhood account?
That I have my 401k, but
so do you have any control over your 401k at all?
I mean,
can you put in a stop sell or something like that?
I mean, I guess I could if I went online and looked at my own account, but I don't do that.
Well, I'll give you an example of what a stop sell would be and how it actually feeds into the beast. Okay. You can go in and set a stock, like set it and forget it. So you could say, I bought the stock at 120. I think it's going to go to 145. So I want to put an automatic sell in at 140. Okay. And if it goes down below 110, I think it's going to break and fall lower. So I'm going to put a stop loss in at 110. So when you put that in, you just told Fidelity that 145 is where I think it's going to go. And I will sell it at 110, right? So you're just by yourself, but Fidelity has all that information collectively. So now Fidelity knows that 60% of the people that own this stock are willing to sell it at 110 and are willing to jump out of it at 110 out of fear. And they also are positive that it's going to go to 145, and that's where they want to sell. So these are indicators like that starts to tell Fidelity where the retail investor is scared and where they're positive. You know what I mean? And then they have that information collectively, and they use that with their money to manipulate it. If they know that you got to stop selling, a stop loss in at 110, if they can push that stock to 110, you'll automatically sell your stock. Does that make any sense? Like all those little things you do under Fidelity, they have that information. The difference is they don't have that information from Robinhood. They don't even know. Like, in other words, I could go on right now and say, I want to buy this stock. And trust me, there's things that are happen instantaneously when you use something like Fidelity, and all that information is being gathered up instantaneously and then being utilized by their algorithms or whatever. So when you use Robinhood, it's outside of the normal stream of information. And that's why Robinhood needed to be stopped, because all of these companies, they know exactly they don't know, they can't do everything to the T, but 90% of the time they have a really big understanding of where the market's going to go by all these indicators, which they control. For example, you short the stock under Fidelity. So when that indicator says it's 140% shorted, they know that because all of that was done under the big hedge funds. So that number exists. Therefore, they use that number in their calculations to understand where a stock will go. But in Robinhood, they have no clue that Tommy that works at fucking Jimmy John's can't wait to buy one more share of GameStop. You know what I mean? And so that's why Robinhood became a threat, because it's an app where retail investors are able to purchase stocks outside of the normal data stream of information, which all the hedge funds are aware of and control.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So when Reddit said, buy this stock, if everybody would have ran onto their Fidelity account and tried to buy the stock, Fidelity would instantaneously start recalculating what to do. But because it's coming from Robinhood, they have no clue if these kids plan to buy more tomorrow or sell more or, whatever. They have zero clue. So sadly, what I'm afraid of now is, and I know because we all get there and I've been there, and it's one of the ways that I got hurt in the market. And what happens is you have these kids who've never invested before, and now what I fear is that they don't realize that now the market has control. The market now knows how they're communicating. It knows the indicators of what they're doing and why. And Robinhood halted the stock. So by halting the stock, what that did is it guaranteed, like, in other words, remember I said that they need to, anything above 350, anything above 1725 basically crushes these people. Okay. Well, even though they're already crushed, by stopping the stock sale, it allowed, again, another thing that big money can do that we can't is, I used to be able to do it, but you can trade after hours. Okay. So I don't know if you ever watch a stock, but it showed you the after hours price. It opens and closes at a different price.
Right.
Well, when they froze the stock, they stopped kids from Robinhood from buying it. And after hours, all these hedge funds were able to go and sell the stock or do whatever they wanted to do. And there was nothing left to fucking to do the volatility of it. You know what I mean? In other words, if the higher a stock goes, the more you lose, and somebody comes in and says, stop the price of that stock. And then after hours, we go in and we sell it. We're still hurt, but they stopped our hurt. They gave us a little break from more hurt. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so what I'm afraid is going to happen is GameStop is not worth $500 a share. It's not. It's a balloon right now. The people were right to short it. They were just criminal in the fact that they were prepared to crush it and over leverage it to 140%. Now what's going to happen is they're controlled. They're going to be limited in how much they can buy. And these people are going to say, yeah, I'm going to hold this forever. And the thing is now Wall Street knows your intention and they can do it any which way they want to do it now. And they'll always have that leverage because eventually they'll be able to borrow more. Like, in other words, if they're 100 million in the hole, they'll borrow another 200 million. Somebody will give it to them and they'll come back on top of this stock and these kids won't be able. So what I hope happens is that some of them people get the hell out before tomorrow, because you will see this. Like, to be honest with you, if I could make a trade right now, if I wanted to, I would definitely go in and short this stock back down. I would short this stock to like $60. You'd probably get it for so cheap. And I can guarantee you, and at least over the course of the next month, this stock will, quite possibly could be $5. But
yeah, because look, I don't know much at all. I'm just going by what I'm seeing online, and several people that I follow were talking about it, and they were like, listen, these kids really fucked over the system. Robinhood now is fucking them. And they were basically saying, if you can buy this stock, you're probably going to lose money, but you're still fucking the system. So like, it's part of history, and it's worth, I guess, for the little guy to finally be able to punch up.
Well, but here's the thing I'm trying to say. What scares me is, like, I have this feeling too. Let's be honest. Tell me you don't feel like, man, I missed out. I'd like to do this. You know what I mean? Right. Tell me you don't feel like you want to go buy 1,000 shares of GameStop right now. You know what I mean? And so I guess what I'm saying is, the kids that are buying it for $300, if they don't get rid of it at $300, if they don't get rid of it at $500, I would hate to see all these kids sitting with it next month and it's $10 and Wall Street wins. Because the only way Wall Street loses is if they get out now. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what's fucked up, is that by stopping the trading of that stock, they not only stop the price from going up, but they also stop those kids from selling at $350 to $500 a share. And I looked now, it's $197. Right. And then it went back up. So this is kind of what I'm saying. They did a great thing, but they're playing with guys that do this every day, who let one slip by them, and now they understand it. You get me?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what scares me.
What's just is confusing to me is you're the only one that I've heard say, if you can, sell it, because everybody else that I'm hearing, they're like, buy and fuck these people.
Well, have you ever
now they've given everybody fair warning. They're like, look, you're probably going to lose money, but it is a way, again, to punch up at the big guy that's, and especially the biggest issue from, politicians. You've seen Dave Portnoy, you have some other people that are like, listen, these people on Wall Street, like you were saying, are able to manipulate these stocks constantly. They're able to go on TV and tell you to buy, sell, whatever, to benefit them. And then the average person has no idea exactly what's going on. And now's an opportunity to say, hey, you know what? Yeah, I might lose some money, but fuck you.
Well, listen, if you bought it at $20 and everybody collectively is like, we ain't selling this shit, right? It only factors in with the shorts. Okay. So in other words, if that stock had 0% shorts, right? Like, in other words, this is where the short squeeze comes in. These people have to buy it tomorrow. Okay. Now, when that stock, if there's losses that are going to be taken, they're going to be taken tomorrow. Right. So if you bought the stock at $5 and it's now $300, $500, I'm not saying that they have to sell it. What I'm scared of is This is, remember I said that everything comes in tiers. You're the last person to get information.
Right.
There's a saying in the stock market that JP Morgan is famous for. And he said, I know when to sell a stock when the shoe shine boy is telling me to buy a stock. So think about in your life when, remember, the hedge funds are the first guys with the information, the big players.
Right.
So when you're walking down the street and some guy's like, hey, man, you better run out tomorrow and get Zoom. Think about by the time somebody told you should buy Zoom, or every time someone on the street told you to buy a stock, it was already inflated 130. Like usually it kind of stabilized. Sometimes you feel, fuck, I should have bought it at 150 because it's 200 now or whatever. Right. But what I'm saying is that now that Robinhood gave in to the man, like we said, they caught up on the game. So if everybody wants to hold their stock, that's fine. Okay. And I'm with you on fuck it, right? What I'm saying is I'm afraid that all these fucking kids are going to go and buy 2 stocks now at when it's at its peak. Right. And then Wall Street wins next month. You get me? In other words, what they did, the damage is done. But once Wall Street gets money together and recalibrates, like one thing I keep thinking of is, and trust me, they will do it. All they have to do is infiltrate one of them Reddit pages, and they can use it for 2 reasons. They can use it for one reason of just knowing what people are going to do. So now they know how these kids are sharing information. So if Wall Street goes under a Reddit page tomorrow and sees that everybody's saying, hey, tomorrow we're going to do AMC, they're going to go in the middle of the night and prepare for that. And then the other thing they could do is they could go on the Reddit page and turn around and say, hey, buy and sell. Like, in other words,
they'll just manipulate the system.
So the thing is I'm afraid that people are going to think they're shoving it to the man, and actually they're fucking walking into a trap, and these motherfuckers are going to get their money back. So the best thing to happen would be for everybody that took that stock to $500 tomorrow to sell as high as they possibly can tomorrow and walk the fuck away and recalibrate and get another stock at another time. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's no reason to keep jumping on GameStop because, as I mentioned on this before, the real valuation of stocks is forward times their earnings. So if they have 100 shares that are available of a stock and the stock is making $10 a year and it's worth 10 times forward earnings, the stock would be worth $100. So if you have 100 shares, you would, divide that in and it would be worth $1 a share.
Right.
Well, I don't know the numbers on GameStop, but I can tell you right now that they were probably already worth 10 or 12 times their earnings. And now they're worth as a stock itself, it won't actually be worth that. So what's going to happen is somebody's going to have to sell. The actual best person to sell right now would be if GameStop CEOs own a lot of shares. This would be the time for them to sell. Therefore, they won't go bankrupt and then reinvest in their business.
Right.
But to end that conversation, what I would just say, as a warning to anybody is, listen, and I could be wrong, could go to $1,000 tomorrow. Okay. But think about the difference of the fact that we're the retail investor. If you bought 2,000 shares at $5, then good. You just made almost $1 million, if not $1 million. But if you're thinking about getting in now, if you bought it at 300, it has to be 600 or whatever. And that may happen, but I'm just letting you know that Wall Street is going to recalibrate themselves. And so what I look at this as is not like, yeah, we're winning and we can win and we're going to keep winning. I think what happened is you just exposed how disgusting these people are. And that is the benefit of this. And you got one over on them, but now retreat. It's like guerrilla warfare would be the best way to keep doing this. Go away and find another secret way to communicate and come back and do it again.
Yeah, I mean, I looked on Robinhood earlier, and not that I was going to buy because it was high, but it did say, no sales. We're not trading this stock anymore. Now again, now
That's fucked
eventually,
up. That is fucked up.
now eventually they came out with an email. I got an email, and I guess tomorrow you'll be able to buy limited stocks in, I guess, AMC or GameStop and whatever else that. Um, so they're already recalibrating
Yeah.
it.
Well, think about the best way I could describe what that means when they limit your purchase power. Think about it when you're playing blackjack at a casino and there's a limit on the table, right? Because people can figure out a way to beat the system as long as they can keep buying in,
Yeah.
And so if they limit how much you can buy in, they can bring you to a breaking point. Like, I can't, that blackjack theory of you just keep doubling up. Well, if they eliminate you from doing that with the stock, therefore they can always outsell you,
So this is how simple my mind works when it comes to numbers and all of this. I was just at the casino. It reopened. I went last 2 weekends ago, and it's I'm playing like online blackjack, and there's shit on there that I don't even know what the fuck is going on. Like it was like,
Dude,
do you
they
want
just take
like it's like, do you want to buy insurance on this? I'm like, what? What the fuck does that even mean? So like, and then it's like, do you want to split? I'm like, yeah, like I kind of knew what that was, but like, there's this woman who's playing on the other side of me, like she's racking shit up, and meanwhile, like this other guy's like, oh, like to play aggressive, huh? And I was like, I guess I don't know, like I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. But meanwhile, like, so I lost like, I don't know, $100, but I just bet on the football games, and luckily I was able to win my money back on that. Like, I can pick some football games and pick a fighter to win a boxing match, things like that. But poker, craps, all that shit, dude. Like, I'm like, I don't fucking.
Well, the computer games are the best. My mom plays like the penny stocks. And I look and I'm like, oh, I sit down, put $100 in. I'm like, penny stocks. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I guess max bet. Would you like triple plus bonus? Well, you have to play triple plus bonus if you want to do the whatever. Okay. You do 3 spins and you're like, I thought this was penny stocks. My money's gone. What the hell's going on?
Dude, when I was in Vegas, I didn't gamble at all. Well, I bet on some football games. I might have played a little bit of slot machines. Our flight kept getting delayed. So in the airport, they got the slot machine. So I'm like, fuck it. Let me just put a couple of hours in there. I pull the lever. It's like, ching, 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 ching. It's going down. It's going off. I'm looking around. I'm like, holy shit. Like, dude, I just hit big. Meanwhile, I didn't even notice that it was 5-cent slot machine. So like I won like $30. But like it just kept going off. And I'm like,
but that's the other thing too with the penny stocks is you're like, oh, I got to do this to get the triple bonus. And then you win and you're like, I won something. And it's like, you bet $38 and you won 10. You're like, what the fuck? What am I playing for?
Exactly.
Well, dude, let me ask you a question. Do you like Vegas?
I mean, I loved Vegas, but
I hated it.
I only went there to try and get laid. We turned, me and my buddy, we turned 30. I talked about this. We turned 30. We went there. It was the first time I ever got on a plane. And I loved it. Like I had a great time. Like, I don't know that I would go back necessarily because at 30, I was able to have multiple days in a row and drinking. And at 40, like that's one day of drinking and I'm out for the count for the next 2. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would go back if there was like a bunch of people.
Well, I had this theory with like guys that grew up in Philly and probably other places closer to Atlantic City and stuff. Is like we always went to Atlantic City, and then the saying of Atlantic City is like, on the way down it's all exciting, and on the way back it's like who's got money for tolls. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so the thing I hated about Vegas, although I won pretty damn well in the one time I went, but basically once you're not winning, it's not fun. Like when you're winning, it's like, oh, free drinks and I got this VIP to this place, whatever.
Right.
And then once you lose, it's like, how much for a drink? Wait, how much to get in this nightclub? How much? And then what happens is like once you if you go down and you say, I want to spend $1,000 a day, if you spend that $1,000 on that one day real fast, or 500, whatever you're limiting yourself to, once you're out of it, you're just like, in other words, there's no, in Atlantic City, you're like waiting for your buddy. You can't wait to get in the car to go home. In Vegas, it's like, I don't know what the fuck to do. I'll walk around, look
Can't
at
escape.
people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I went with 2 other dudes and they go there all the time. Like they were whipping out their platinum cards and they're like, oh, go sign up. You can go get a card. I'm like, dude, I'm not, you know what I mean? I just went because it just opened up. It was something to do on a Saturday during the day. And we're walking around. They're putting their cards in. My one buddy's like, oh, I lost like $130. So I'm like, all right, you ready to roll? He's like, yeah. And he's like, hold on, let me go to my favorite slot machine. He goes to that. I'm scrolling through my Instagram within a matter of like 5 minutes. Somehow he won all his money back. And he's like, I'm good. All right, I'm good now. So I'm like, but me, like every slot, like I threw some money in.
It's a way. I don't get it, dude.
Yeah.
The weird part is I feel like I used to. The worst part is there's no way that they know this. So I'm not trying to say like, dude, it's a conspiracy, but I feel like every time I've ever tried something new at the casino, like when we were kids, remember we used to go, like I was 16 the first time I went to a casino with a fake ID, and I hit like $300 on a fucking slot machine, like we off at $20.
You were like Nick Papagiorgio.
But so yeah, hey, Papa Giorgio. But what happens is you start like I don't think I've ever won since, but I always like go back with that theory, and then it's like somebody says to you, hey, try craps, and you're like, oh shit. And you're like, why wasn't I playing craps all this time? I was wasting money on slots. Then you go back and play craps and you're like, oh, it's not as fun as the last time I did it. And you just end up being wiped clean,
Yeah, I know the craps has like the best odds of the win.
Craps is fun.
I don't understand it. So I don't really play.
Yeah, craps.
I played it a couple times. I was in AC with some buddies and they're like, here, put your money here, do this, put it on this line, whatever. And I did it and I won a little, but like,
even when you win that way, you like, I've played some games like that where I'm like, people are like, dude, why'd you stop? You're winning. I'm like, I have no clue. I'm just sitting here and you're telling me like, put that there. Like,
I'm good.
That's no fun. I want to have fun too,
I'm good with managing my money. You know what I mean? I'm good with saving and kind of being on a budget and things like that. But when it comes to numbers and all that stuff, man, I'm just my brain just doesn't, compute.
Well, like I don't know if you like blackjack, but
I do.
And I like playing it, but I don't like playing it at the casino because I hate when, like, I just feel like some asshole, like everybody's always mad at the next guy. And I'm like, come on, dude. Like, what the fuck? Why would you hit on 12? I don't care. I don't give a fuck. I went for it on 12. And the best part is, and I won, but you're mad because I'm not supposed to do that in blackjack.
Right. And, I like that. And I like roulette when I do play. But again, I'm just looking at the numbers and I'm like, all right, bet on, red or black or the first 12,
I do third 12. Well, I can't bet anything other than third 12 and what I call up the gut, which is the middle line.
Yeah.
But what I'll do, I mean, it doesn't, like the thing people have to remember when you're playing roulette is you come up with all the systems you want in your head. Like, in other words, the way somebody described it to me is like your odds are 36-1 in roulette. Like if you're playing a number and people will say like, 12 hasn't come out in a while. It's like your odds are 36-1. Even if it hasn't come out, every time that ball spins, your odds are 36-1.
Yeah. And dude, I hear about people that go to casinos all the time and are always hitting. And, I feel like it's usually people that are good with numbers, good with money. Like a buddy of mine, the buddy of mine that I texted me last night, and he was like, talking to me about just different shit. And I mentioned, not to kind of go off topic, it's a little bit on the topic, but I mentioned this documentary on Netflix about minimalism. They're called like the minimalists. So these two guys, they were, I don't know if they were on Wall Street, but they were like corporate guys. And they were just like, we bought the nice house, we had the nice car, we just kept buying everything to furnish the house. And he's like, and we just started to build up all this stuff. And he's like, I was just miserable. Like all these things that I was accumulating, none of these things were making me happy. Right. The one guy, he kept moving up the corporate ladder. He's making X amount of dollars. He's like, I'm feeling pretty good. He's like, loses his job. And ultimately, they started like looking inside their houses and doing some soul searching. And the one guy, his mother died, and he missed a call because he was at work. And then his wife left him, and all these things. And he's like, dude, I'm just trying to buy all these things to like fill holes in my life. And it just wasn't working. So then they started selling all of their shit. And it was like decluttering their mind, decluttering their house. And they wrote some books, they do some tours, they have these documentaries on Netflix. And I was mentioning it to a buddy of mine, and he turns it on, he watches it. The next day, he's like, oh, I started going through my closet, sold an old Flyers jersey for a couple $100. He's putting some other things up on there. I was with him in Vegas. We're looking up. He was looking at. So this is going back 10 years ago. He was looking up. There's an artist called. His last name's Goddard. I forget the guy.
I know I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was a big fan of him then. And he wound up buying a painting. And he was like, I don't know, maybe like $1,200. And it's worth like $6,500 now.
That's good.
And it's like little things like that. Like he's good with, kind of knowing what to do with, he's been a very good investor in retail, not retail, real estate. And luckily I can sometimes pick his brain with certain things, but it doesn't always sink in because it's just not the way I work. Like I'm a hustler. Like I just want to, like somebody calls me like, yo, you want to work? You want to go do this to make some money? I'm like, all right, I'm in.
But when you were saying about sitting at the casino and like you threw some money in the slot machine and it just, went nowhere, I feel like I'm exactly like I am in my life as I am at a casino. It's like, remember I said somebody might say, dude, why'd you get up? You were winning or whatever. It's like, I will walk around a casino and go like, oh, put $100 in this machine and it's gone. I'll go over and then I'll just go back to the game I like and I'll win my money back-ish or win a little bit. But the whole thing is like, I should have just sat and played that game and not fucking had that ADD of like, I got to go over here. I got to go over there. I got to do this. And I'm just like half in on everything I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like if you play $200 in that slot machine, you sit there all night, you might actually win something, but I'll just put $20 in and walk down and then we waiting for somebody to come out the bathroom and throw $20 on something else. And next thing you know, you're like, wow, I just fucking threw all my money away. I'm the same way, like in my life where I'm like, oh, I'll try doing this. I'll try doing that. And then I'll buy this and I'll do that. And it's fucking, you should just pick something, stay simple and just fucking go towards it.
Well, and here I am saying I'm like good with money and everything. And after I watched this documentary and I'm looking all around my house because literally like they boxed up everything they owned. Right. And then they were like, all right, let's take out what we need. Like if you need a spatula to cook, let's take that out. All of the essential things that they needed on a day-to-day basis, they took out, but there were just boxes upon boxes upon boxes of things that they did not need in their life, that they weren't using, that it was just pointless. It was just taking up space. And, I'm looking around my apartment and I'm just like, I got magazines stacked that are probably 10 years old that are just sitting in this thing that I'm like, I got to get rid of those. I got to go through my closet, get rid of some shit. And then I'm like, wait a minute. And then I'm like on my bank statements and I'm like looking at some things and I'm noticing that my gym membership that I have had for the past 3 years, I don't even go.
Well, I can't get rid of them. I just fucking saw, I canceled it 15 times. I just saw like, I got charged for Planet Fitness again. That's 4 years old. I'm getting charged $20 a month. Thought I got rid of that thing.
Yeah. Well, see, and what's fucked up about it is, so like a lot of time, like they always run those deals, 10, no money down, $10 a month. If you do the black card, it's $20. So I noticed
you get the massage chair.
Yeah. And I noticed that suddenly it was like I was paying like $28. And I was like, what the fuck is that? They were, because they shut down for a few months, they jacked up the prices to make up for those losses.
Dude, how about this? I pay $99 a month for a gym, right? Sounds horrible, but it's a great gym. And when I was making money, they got a fucking saltwater, fucking Olympic sized swimming pool and a sauna. It was more of like paying $100 to go play racquetball and like they have everything. Like it's a pretty cool gym. Well, clearly I had to cut that loose when everything closed down. So they weren't open, right? They weren't open. They had no way. You couldn't even call them. If you called them, it was like, sorry, we're closed down for the next whatever months.
Right.
But I'm thinking, okay, so the first month I was like, well, I guess they'll just not charge everybody. Well, I got to charge. I'm like, what the fuck? It's the last kind of charge I need, right? So then I go and I'm researching, like, why am I still being charged? They offered virtual gym. Okay. Yeah. So they were closed down, but they still had like a thing online where, like, if you wanted to like fucking take a yoga class or something.
Right.
So I wrote them 1,000 times, like, hey, here's my thing. Like, only way I could do it is by email. So they charged me, like, I don't even know what happens because it's a gym. So of course they're going to still try and get their money.
Right.
But like then at some point I just canceled the fucking, like, I just said that they can't charge me on my credit card. And I just got a letter the other day like, hey, you need to call the finance department. You owe us money. I'm like, fuck you. I don't know you shit for no virtual gym.
I know. Do you got a virtual fucking Olympic size?
Yeah, like, can you give me weights or something? What's going on?
Yeah, so I canceled that. I had the HBO app on my Fire Stick. And I'm like, I barely, you know what I mean? Like, I watched it a few times. But I'm like, well, it's $15 a month. And I'm just like, now it sounds like frugal, but like, meanwhile, like I'm watching this thing about just getting rid of things in your life that you don't need. And I'm just like, I don't use this. I'm getting charged for this. Like, it's just pointless.
Well, I guess since we're saying this, it's like one thing that I've been saying about moving forward. I've had to do that with my finances like 3 times. Right. So I was like, all right, what can I get rid of? So at first it was, you have them things where it's like, but I don't want to lose my phone contract because you think for some reason you've had it for 5 years, you're kind of in something or whatever.
Right.
So I've downsized, like, just to use one, because I did everything you said too. Like I went on and got rid of like Apple this. I was paying for this, I was paying for that. And in most cases, you don't lose it because it's like, well, my girlfriend has this, but for some reason we're paying for it twice and whatever. Well, I actually went from, I used to pay like $137 for my phone and like $250 for cable. And just take those 2 bills alone. I now pay $45 for the same exact phone service. And I pay $79 for just internet, which I'm pretty much ain't missing anything.
Right.
And it's like, that was $250. That was like $400 now turned into $150. So moving forward, I think I'm going to have a little bit of financial freedom because I really downsized a lot of stuff and I'm not missing it.
Right.
But I don't know, everything you were saying about like downsizing your life. I don't know if you've seen this thing, and it was a Netflix show for a while too, but it's just, I guess they, not to be like racist about it, but it's like in the Asian way to do it. And it's this Asian woman who has a cleaning show. And so what they tell you to do is, how you go through your house and you go, all right, I'm going to get rid of these clothes. So you look at all your clothes and you get rid of like 25% of them. You put them away, you give them to somebody or something.
Right.
The Asian way to do that is you do it 10 times. Like you do it and then you're done with it. And then you go back and you go again. All right, what can I get rid of? Even though you just did it to the same stuff. And eventually you're left with just what you need.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even with this whole, minimalism, it's, I think it's Mark Zuckerberg. I think, what the hell's his name? I'm getting the guy from Apple. I'm drawing a blank here.
Tim Cook.
Not Tim Cook, the guy that died.
Oh, Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs. Like they always wore the same thing. I think even Obama only wore like navy blue suits. and they were like, I have hard decisions to make all day. The last thing I want to do is decide what I got to wear. You know what I mean? And it's little things like that probably people like you and I, like, they're not things we think of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when you think about just the little things that you can do to simplify your life, it's
Well, that's why people, I don't know if they still do it or whatever, but like so not necessarily off topic, but it's kind of going there. I always think about that when you say like making these, having less decisions to make. And that's why they try to incorporate uniforms in public school now. Remember before you could wear whatever you want to public school and shit?
right.
Well, actually, I don't know if you ever went to a school besides maybe college where you could wear whatever you want, but people don't realize how stress-free it is for a kid to just have to wear a white shirt and pants, as opposed to, like, say you're poor and every day you're waking up like, I can't wear this shirt because they'll make fun of me because I wore it yesterday and da da da.
Well, that's what I thought it was more about.
Oh yeah, but it's also, I think it's just all about that. That's exactly what it's about. But I'd say that there's more factors. But I'm saying, even if you don't focus on that and you think about it more like Zuckerberg, it's like, you're just eliminating anything else you got to think about. Of course, that's what it probably comes down to, is that. But at the same time, still, just think about a parent. Like, they ain't got to go and get all these different clothes. Like, even if you have money, you don't have to think about, all the different things. You just get your kid 10 white shirts and 10 pairs of pants. Pee Wee Herman, your life.
And the funny thing is also about that documentary, because they had a financial guy on there, Dave Ramsey, who I listened to, and he was basically, he's like, you have people that just constantly want, and we're just constantly bombarded with so much marketing geared for you to buy things. You know what I mean? And he was like, people don't have self-control anymore like they used to, because and I guess, in all fairness, like I said, we're constantly bombarded with all these different ads for different things and keeping up with the Joneses and all this different stuff. And I kind of just had a fucking brain fart. Where the hell was I going with this?
No, you were just saying how basically you're the minimalist documentary you're watching, where if you want, I'll just make a point onto what you said, because the bottom line is, and I can't, there's a big theory behind it, and I do kind of buy into it, but they say that that's kind of what America wants, in a sense, and it's a way to distract people. But I can't, in other words, it's hard to buy into, because it's like, well, I don't know if me wanting to buy an iPhone or wanting the newest computer really somehow controls me. But that's what they say, is that in a weird way, they distract you by keeping you kind of like keeping up with the Joneses. And it actually is a way to disconnect you from what's really important in life. And they say it's I guess the part I can't buy into is how much of it is purposely done and how much of it is just what we do to ourselves.
Oh yeah, it's a combination of both. And now I remember where I was going with it, because all the stock talk just kind of fried my brain cells. We remember, like, when we were kids, in the documentary, this one woman was talking about layaway. Do you remember that? Like, as a kid?
Oh, do I? Yeah, everything was on layaway. House of Bargains, dude. That's how I got half my shit.
Half of my clothes. Like, my mom would buy stuff on layaway and just make payments on it, like, until she paid it off.
When I was living in Florida, this is the part where, as I got older, and I think that we talked about this early on in the podcast, where I said how I used to feel like I used to think that the world was like Southwest Philly, and then there was wealthy people. Right. I used to think it was like Southwest Philly, and then if you were a little richer than Southwest Philly, you were from Granite Run and Springfield, and then you were super wealthy. There was nothing above that.
Right.
And I realized real fast that we didn't realize, not only were we kind of poorish, but we also were in this bubble that, like, is unlike a lot of other places. And I remember, like, dude, try explaining layaway to somebody that's not from Philly. I don't even know if it's a Philly thing. But I remember on multiple occasions talking to people where I just thought, like, oh, you're the same age as me, you'll remember. And, like, layaway was kind of like a creation. Like it was just a way to say to somebody, hey, can you hold this and I'll pay for it later?
Yeah, well, and the thing was talking about layaway. The guy was Dave Ramsey was saying like now we live in a society where we want instant gratification. So like you got that credit card, you don't have the cash, but you got the credit card, you just swipe it and roll out.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, people, you feel like you're not even spending money. You know what I mean? And then he's like, and then you're just building those bills up and, you're paying interest on it. Whereas the layaway, I don't really remember because I wasn't buying things on that layaway, but I don't think that you paid interest on it. Like you just basically went.
No, you basically said to somebody, can you hold this for me? Like this is what I'm saying, where I used to think about it like it was a financial concept, like a credit card, only it worked differently. But the reality of it was you lived in an area where people were not wealthy. So therefore it just benefited the store owner to say, okay, I'll hold this for you. And, I don't even know. I guess they had to make some form of payment on it, but it was just kind of guaranteeing the store owner that you'll come back and pay for it.
Well,
and
yeah,
therefore
you can make payments. Like you can go in a week and pay $10 and then the next week, $20.
I don't think there was any extra charge on it. Like in other words, just what I mean.
I don't think so.
There was no, I guess to a certain extent before credit cards, that's kind of what people did at like a deli. You know what I mean? Before credit cards, people would walk in and say, they would get some things. And it was just kind of like, I trust that person. So I give them credit in a sense.
Oh yeah.
And so in the advent of credit cards, whatever else, it just became something, I guess, in poorer neighborhoods where it was like, because it still benefits both parties. It's like, hold this for me and I'll come back and pay for it. And I guess if you're living in a environment where a lot of your customers aren't, you'd rather hold something and know you're going to sell it than have it hanging there and keep telling somebody no, rather than just let them make payments. But that was basically done where it was like somebody kept a book behind the thing and was like, okay, Tommy paid $10 towards his $20 shirt. Like, it's kind of embarrassing when you think about it.
It is, but it was such simpler times in so many ways. And, with the whole topic on, the stock market and sticking it to the man. I mean, a lot of the social issues and everything that we're just having now is, wealth inequality. And it's just disguised as sexism, racism, and all these other things. Not to say that those things don't exist, but in a level, if the playing ground was just a little bit more balanced, I feel like those issues and the animosity towards one another, like there would be more of a sense of community within people. Cause you're not necessarily keeping up with the Joneses because everybody's kind of like on par with one another. You know what I'm saying?
But I feel like what's going on is it's like somehow somebody has access to people in a different way. So it's like, in order to keep us from feeling like we're all in the same boat, there's somebody whispering to somebody, this kind of person doesn't have to deal with that shit. You know what I mean? Like that's what's going on is you're sitting at home saying, oh man, why is my fucking debt so high? Like even just look at like the student loans thing. There's some people like I have student loans. I'm not saying that there isn't a part of me that's like, fuck it, get rid of them or whatever. But I guess what I'm saying is the fight over student loans where you have people saying like, do I get my money back for paying student loans? And then people don't see that person as having any fucking say because it's like, well, that person has money or whatever. And I think the reality of it is it's not that, that maybe there isn't a problem with student loans or whatever, but the problem that comes out of it is somebody kind of puts it in someone's head that if they have a lot of student loans, it's not their fault and that other people don't have to deal with it the same way that they have to deal with it, and the reality of what the problem with student loans is that the government took over those loans. You're not allowed to go bankrupt. They're the one loan in the world where like, you can't even like refinance them and whatever else. So the real problem is is that the government took control of them and then kind of like forced you to get them. And therefore schooling went higher, just like in the medical business, where when nobody really knows what they're paying for, they don't mind paying $7,000 a year to go to school. And they put the pressure on us to look at each other like, well, why do I have to pay and you don't have to pay and yada, yada, yada. When the reality is why is school charging so much? And why is the government, just giving out loans fucking willy nilly for high priced education,
Yeah. Well, it was like that meme that I told you that I had earlier. Dude, I don't know what the hell. I got a little frog in my throat that I found earlier. It was just a black and white picture, like a little cartoon of like a CEO type guy. And it was back when, the Occupy Wall Street movement was going on. And you saw all the protesters out there, like down with big banks, down with Wall Street, all this. And the CEO was just at his phone. And he was like, introduce them to identity politics. Because then there we go. There was the divide. And not that these things weren't already happening, but it's gotten worse with as far as, all the like the critical race theory and all this other stuff. And, it's just like I said, with going back to layaways and how things were simpler, like, we were talking about the township that I work for, and we're talking about the fire halls. Us growing up in the city, they're paid firefighters. And, out in the suburbs, a lot of these townships, boroughs,
they're volunteer.
They're volunteer. So like you have people that grow up in these towns, unlike us, and a lot of them, their fathers were involved with it. They grow up, they're involved with it. And there's like a sense of pride of like taking care of your community. Like the guys that I work with that lived in that town for years, and they're telling stories of, the alarm's going off and it's such and such's house. They got to run. They're seeing, such and such flying down the street, hop in, this person's house on fire. We got to go. And now they're struggling to get members because you have, more people, different people moving into the communities, kind of like us, like growing up, and that are just completely oblivious to it.
Oh yeah. That makes sense.
And they're just like, it's not something that they do. It's not something,
like you could see the sense of community as when you're in, say, Southwest Philly in the 80s, even though they didn't have a volunteer fire department, you could see people being like, oh yeah, my dad was in it. So I do this on the weekends and now I'm doing it. And once that all goes away, like you said, it's not even that people wouldn't volunteer. It's like they wouldn't even understand that they would have to volunteer or that it's something that they should do to be part of that community.
Well, yeah, I mean, it goes, and it's the same thing with, kids athletics, like some of the guys that I work with had kids and they would volunteer on, Saturdays, Sundays, whatever, to go paint lines on the fields and do all these things. And they struggled to get parents to stay. As a matter of fact, they had town hall meetings about open up basketball courts, and they were like, well, we need volunteers, we need, refs, we need this. And parents were like, well, we're not staying.
Yeah.
Like, we're not doing it. And it was like, all right, well, now we're not going to have basketball.
Well,
so it's just a weird dynamic of like, just the complete, just falling apart of like, they're like an American society and like just American values.
Dude, listen, here's something that, that does kind of scare me in the sense of what's going on. One of the things where sometimes I'm like, am I being crazy to think all this bad shit is happening to us right now? But here's the thing, man, when you go by the playbook of how to destroy a society, you take away their sense of community, their sense of family, their sense of religion, and you take away the things that unify them, like the flag, like monuments, and so is this just a coincidence that a lot of these things are under attack? Or are we actually dude, put it this way, the same way that Wall Street just realized that there is a Reddit page that is a threat to them that they weren't aware of, I feel like social media is very new, even though it isn't new in the sense of like, I've been on Facebook for 10 years. As far as a tool for manipulation of people, it's a new tool. Like I would say that only over the course of 4 years have I started to realize my reliance on social media. And it's just funny to me that we are dramatically separating. But even to take this back to the stocks, one thing I'll say, when you were saying this, the way things were simpler back then and all, I think the other wonderful thing that just happened with the Wall Street thing is it wasn't so much that, like, it could have been any stock. They could have done it to Zoom. You know what I mean?
Right.
But if you look at those stocks they were doing it to, and then you think about like the pandemic, and you think about how it's kind of like the little guy. So basically, you've got, one thing I noticed in the beginning, and I know we've said on here, was one of my first trips was to buy this computer, and I went to Best Buy like literally like a week into the pandemic. And do you remember discussing on here how GameStop was being villainized in the media because they were trying to stay open? And people were like, how is GameStop relevant right now? So the attitude was like, the CEO of GameStop is disgusting. So I was on board with that. I'm like, yeah, well, that doesn't make any sense. What, do people really need wires and cables? But then I'm driving to Best Buy, and I remember being like surprised it was open. And when I pulled up to Best Buy, dude, there was hundreds of cars outside with dudes just running like 75-inch screen TVs out to them. And I look over, and GameStop was right next door to Best Buy, closed up. And I kind of said to myself, that's kind of fucked up, actually, now that you think about it. Like, why? Like, if you're GameStop and you're like, I can't stay open, but the store that's been crushing me is allowed to stay open. So now, fast forward, not only did all the government rules just put way more pressure on GameStop, who was already a dying business, now on top of that, big hedge funds were like, all right, we're going to put the nail in the coffin. We're going to fucking short sell this stock and just destroy these people financially. And to me, that's what makes the GameStop thing so amazing. Was it's a group of regular people who got together and beat Wall Street when Wall Street was trying to destroy a business that was weak, like a one of the old school reliable businesses. There's no more mom and pops, but that's as close when you compare Best Buy to GameStop. I mean, or whatever. That's as close to that mom and pop store you're going to get. That was extra pressure was put on them during the pandemic. So, I mean, I do think like it's kind of exciting what happened, and I don't see it being a major victory in the end, but it was a win for the little guy against the big guy. And it was just so much extra great that it was big business trying to crush a business that they already crushed, and just trying to put it just do away with it. And now GameStop's fucking $500 a share. It don't even make sense, dude.
Yeah, and this kind of goes back, stories like this, like, it gave me a Woody. Like, I got excited because, and listen, over the past few years, like, I've kind of changed my stance with some politics and stuff like that. And a lot of people, a lot of friends that a lot of people I'm friends with are very conservative, work hard, you'll get ahead. And I do agree with that to some extent. But things like this, and you're seeing how Wall Street was able to react and just kind of like tell Robinhood, put an end to this, and not be able to get a foot up on them. That is a reminder that there's a lot of people that still, like, you can work hard all you want, but there are big businesses, big corporations, Wall Street, all these things that really do have their knee on the necks of Americans. And it kind of brings me back to that, like, that socialist idea. And I'm like, listen, I'm not for big government, but it does kind of remind me, like, and I'm like, when I think about big tech, big government, all, Wall Street, they're all in cahoots. And it made me excited to see You had conservatives, you had progressives, libertarians, all kind of like cheering on what just happened. And between that and Bernie memes, like that was like the great
Yeah.
unifier of 2021 so far.
But here's where we need to go with it. This is the thing that I am getting a little hope, because personally, to me, the media is the fucking enemy and people don't realize it. And what's happening is that you don't realize it until you're on the shitty end of it. Okay. So what I think happened with this Wall Street thing, that's why I'm afraid people don't take it for what it is you'll watching the media try and make us direct our anger somewhere. Like, basically, it's like, in other words, the fact that the media is not say like if think about it, if you're just a press and that's all you are, and how do you not feel the same thing that we feel? How do you not feel, yeah, good for the little guy? Well, whatever. Well, probably because the media is losing money, because they in some way are probably ran by these hedge funds, or the owners of CNN and shit have money in these hedge funds. And so I just hope that people, now that this is a unifying situation where it's simply the little guy, they can't add the politics, the what do you call it, Tom? The identity politics.
Right.
They can't add the identity politics in this. And I don't know if we mentioned it on here, but like, they fucking shut down the Reddit page for hate speech and acts of, I believe it said white supremacy or something. But so what I hope happens in this is, some liberal or libertarian or whatever who understands what just happened is now watching the media that they love or that they trust, and they're seeing that the story they're being told is not true. Like, we need to wake up to the media. That's what I'm thinking in my head, as where the victory from this is a small financial victory. Like, hedge funds ain't going anywhere, but they just, like, a few of them just took a real beating. But now we need to make sure that we're directing our anger in certain places. And if you don't want to direct any anger, that's fine. But hopefully, as things like this keep happening, people start to open up their eyes as to, like, why do you want me to think this is a bad thing? Like, that's what happened with me in the media. Is there was a couple of things that I knew 100% were not the way they were presented in the media, and it was undeniable to me. And I hope that there is someone involved in this GameStop situation that's watching the story being told to them, and they're like, this isn't true. And therefore it'll cause them to do more critical thinking, as opposed to just listening to what they're being told to feel.
Oh yeah. I mean, I one of the most obvious things to me, and and people that maybe watch CNN, over the past year, every time you turn it on, they had a death tracker, COVID death tracker,
It's gone.
and it's now gone. And I don't know if people are aware, but people are still dying. But CNN doesn't want you to see that every day, because they want you to believe that things are all rosy and things are going back to normal. And there's nothing, they didn't do anything wrong. They're not necessarily they are manipulating you, but they didn't do anything illegal. They weren't lying by showing you those numbers. The problem is again, when you turn that on and you see that subliminally, you're taking that in every single day. And it's like, eventually, dude, like, whether you're aware of it or not, it's going to affect you. And then all of a sudden, we get a new president, the same things, nothing changed. And now they removed that. And of course, I don't want to just pinpoint on CNN, because, I'm sure, I haven't really watched too much Fox. I'm sure they're going to be, hardcore going at Biden nonstop, and which, it is what it is.
Well, they're
But,
banning conservative media from the White House.
well, yeah, but that's, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to get down that hole yet, but like I said, It's just these subtle things that happen to the news that you watch. And like a buddy of mine was messaging me on his social media. Like he just kind of started deleting some people, some things. And he's like, I just kind of kept it to maybe like financial advisors and other things that are going to benefit him that he's going to see on a daily basis, as opposed to negative stuff. And, recently, like I've gotten a little bit more political and I've lost, X amount of followers over the past week. I was on vacation, so I was sitting on my fucking couch board and I'm just seeing things and I'm just like, this is crazy. And the wild thing is, it really does. Like, I mean, you really do seem like a conspiracy theorist when you kind of talk about these things, because it's kind of like an ex-girlfriend that, is cheating on you, and you're explaining to your friend, well, she didn't call me back when I called her. And they're like, so what's that mean? And you're like, yeah, but she calls me back nonstop all the time for years. And now all of a sudden she's coming home late, a little bit later. She's saying it's work. Maybe it is. But you living in that situation, but to the outside world, it seems like, dude, maybe you're just overreacting a little bit. And it's just wild.
Well,
And
put it
I don't want to continue down this road too much, because
no. Well, we don't have to stay positive on it, but to stay like this. What is clear to me that people need to be aware of is the media turned it on and nothing's changed. Like, in other words, the information is not only still there, but it's worse. They turned on the fear and now they're turning off the fear. That's it. Regardless of what your politics are, the media turned on the fear and now they're turning off the fear.
Now it's a new fear, though. It's a different fear. They're starting to peddle a different fear.
But that's but I'm just saying, just looking at the virus and being aware of that. And this is what I meant with like the Wall Street thing. Hopefully, see, people need to get a personal blow. We all do. Like, in other words, I don't know how I would feel if I was, on the left right now. I might be like, Jesus Christ, them conservatives are disgusting or whatever. But I guess what I'm saying is, you need to get a blow like from someone. You need to be aware and see it in someone you trust. In other words, if someone's constantly telling you, yo, Danny's a fucking liar, dude, don't trust him. Danny's a liar. Danny's a liar. And you're listening to everything I'm saying about somebody else and you don't believe what they say. And then all of a sudden I lie to you. It'll start to make you start to reconsider that other person or whatever. And so there are a lot of things going on where if people would, step out of their identity politics box and just start asking their own questions. I mean, and I'm not saying it like as if anybody's doing something wrong. What I'm trying to say is the media has scared me. And so I don't see a way for the public to unite until they start to realize that maybe they shouldn't be listening to everything they listen to. And I just hope that there was a blow taken in the media by some of what's gone on recently. And I am starting to see positively that this could, this dam could start opening up to where people realize like not to fucking rely on all these sources for your information.
Well, again, that's the one thing that we can take out of the Wall Street thing is like, look, there's a lot of people that are pulling the strings that are in control, that have a big, tremendous effect on your life that maybe you're not even aware of.
Yeah.
And they're all kind of intertwined between, the media that you watch, the social media that you're on, just about every aspect of your life. And, if there is one thing, I hope maybe some people might look at this situation and maybe start to be like, well, why am I watching CNN? Let me see what this other news is saying. And to be honest with you, I think I've even said this on my own. I think it's really important to, if you're on social media and you're seeing somebody maybe post about some things like maybe like me, even if you disagree, usually I'll share like somebody, like the person that I got the meme from or whatever. Following other people and finding other people through them is how I'm getting my news, like turning on podcasts from different people. And I'm starting to really more follow to people that are calling out everybody, that are seeing, you know, the
Glenn Greenwald's
hypocrisy.
a great one.
Glenn Greenwald is really good. Um, but just bigger thinkers in general. I don't really know if that's the best term that I want to use. But there's like, just to give you an example, there's this woman, Africa Brooke. She's a certified mindset coach and speaker. Uh, she put out this big post about why she left the left and why she's getting away from identity politics and the wokeness. And basically, like, that's who I'm starting to lean more to, following people that are speaking out of it, because one of the things that caught my attention, and I shared some things that she said on my Instagram, and she was like, how free are we if we're constantly living in fear of saying the wrong thing? And that's all we're hearing, like, especially, right now from the left, because they're in full charge, Senate, presidency, all that. And that's the biggest. And with all this freedom of speech, like, there's, a lot of censorship going on. I just think it's really important to kind of like listen to people that aren't really talking about politics, and they're talking about interactions between humans and how we should think and how we should approach, political conversations, racial issues, you know, any kind of isms
Well,
in the world right now.
well, to take it one little step further, I would say don't listen to any one person. And I'm not saying that's what you said. I know what you mean by what you're saying, but I'm saying to take a even more of a bird's eye view of it. The thing is it's not that Fox News isn't telling you the news, and it's not that CNN isn't telling you the news, but you have to remember that these people are not necessarily even journalists. They're political commentators. And so they already have an opinion. They have a side. So what you have to remember is when you said, if you see me post something and you whatever, see, what I would suggest for people is if you see somebody, post something, and then you see someone else, post something, and they're not aligned, don't say, okay, well, I like this person and that person I don't like as much as this person. I'll trust this person. Understand that when you see that there's a conflict, and then use your own brain and read a story from CNN and then read a story from Fox and take the information. The information is there. You need to wipe away the narrative. So don't just say, like, I think what's going on in this world too much is when people say to you something like, oh, where'd you hear that? Fox News? Like, maybe he did. And maybe the way the person came at you is definitely too much from that other side. But understand that you dismissing something because it came from a source doesn't necessarily justify your actions either. Don't take any information from anyone. Just look at the information, look at the other side, go on your own. And if Tommy says something and Tommy's a good guy, take a listen to what he said and take a listen to what the other person said, and then do a little bit of research on your own and then form your opinion. Maybe Tommy's still wrong, but don't be dismissive of people because they're attached to a certain, belief or a line with, understand that there is what I would say is there's a different viewpoint on two things. And because we're talking finances, I'll tell you something right now. That's one of the funniest things that me and my brother always joke about when you watch financial news. I always find it funny to show you how people have their own agenda because we're talking about numbers and business. How can one person say that stock is going to die, and another person who went to Harvard just as like they did say, that I think that stock's going to go up or whatever? And clearly there's no way that numbers are lying. So you got to understand that those two people are putting either some kind of different information in, or they have an agenda. And in most cases with stocks, sometimes they're telling you something's going to go up because their agenda is because they're planning for it to go down or whatever. So it's just funny to me that you even have the two sides like that when it comes to financial news. It just shows you that, you got to do your own homework or you're going to end up getting busted like Wall Street did.
Yeah. And, to I don't know, kind of land this plane. It was like, the thing that I posted on the Layman Terms page, a quote by Voltaire, judge a man by his questions rather than his answers.
Yeah, that was a good post. That's the truth too.
And I can't say it again that we're not here to give you all the answers. But we do have a lot of questions and we want to talk about them. The things that we're seeing in the world, we're trying to figure out. And I'm a little bit conflicted at the moment now because I was that person that was like, I got to stop talking about politics. But then at the same time, I'm like, I don't think there's anything more important going on in the world right now, especially like again, when you see with the coronavirus, when you see with the stimulus package, when you see what just happened on Wall Street and how everything is all intertwined. It's important to know. It's important to kind of follow these things and it's difficult because it is so intertwined and it is so complicated. It's essentially like me listening to you talk about the stock market. You know what I mean? And people's lives are busy. They got kids, they're working 2 jobs or whatever. And it's tough. It really, really is tough to follow. But I don't know. I do think it's really important to just have adult conversations with people and not be so, stubborn in your train of thought and, to just kind of like get to know people and really kind of try to understand where they're coming from, even if they disagree with you.
Well, even think about when you're a kid and the teacher says, there's no stupid questions, right?
Right.
And we'd laugh like there is stupid questions. You know what I mean?
Right.
But when I look at that kind of now, and if you want to reevaluate it into the world we're in, people are being polarized for their questions, Yeah. And so if you ask me, if you were to eliminate that polarizing thing, if someone was to ask a question, to me, that shows like, it's one thing to ask a question. It's another thing to make a statement, right? So if someone was to say like, the world is racist, and someone else was to say, I don't understand that though. How's the world racist? To me, the person asking the question is willing to, he's asking why. And he's also showing a vulnerability and saying, inform me. And I'm willing to learn, or I'm willing to process that information. But, it doesn't then make them racist because they're asking the question. And I think we're in this world of like, you don't have to make the statement anymore. If you ask the question, you're just as guilty,
Yeah.
And so, well, I guess with that being said, we'll leave this layman's terms. I hope you guys learned a little bit about the stock market. I'll tell you, GameStop, root for them. I don't know if it's going to end or whatever, but I'll also leave you on this too. Do not buy any more GameStop if you're not already in this group already. Don't go rushing to buy any GameStop because Wall Street's going to win this one in the end. So don't make any mistakes now. Anything, Tom, you want to say?
No, because we're ending on stocks and I got nothing on that.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks a lot, guys, for listening. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. It's always good talking to you, Tom. Remember, like, subscribe, and give us some comments or whatever. We want to get this show a little more audience involved. So your input means a lot to us. Okay. Like and subscribe.
All right. See you guys.